So there is the issue. That pipe is flat. It has just sucked it, completely collapsed. I don't know about this. This is devastating. So what's happening now is I turn on the pump and the pump builds pressure and all the faucets and everything are working, but it won't shut off. It just keeps running and running and running. When I switch the pump, and I'll get it just in the right spot, it works. But when I switch it to the culinary water, I can't get anything to work but just gurgle a little bit of water out. Well, so in my previous video, when I was repairing the converter charger, it got shorted out and it blew some fuses. I had to take this panel off so that I could replace those fuses and test and make sure everything was okay. Dodged a bullet, everything worked great, but then I noticed something. They didn't use this right. They had things switched incorrectly. I don't know how they did it, but one of these valves was turned so that when they had the pump running, it, instead of drawing water out of the fresh tank, it was not pulling anything but suction. And it's obviously a really good pump because it collapsed the pipes. So I'll show you that pipe and then I'll show you how I'm going to attempt to repair it. I'm hoping I don't have to replace all those pipes, but I think I might have to. Let me show you what it looks like. So there is the issue. That pipe is flat. It has just sucked it, completely collapsed. And all along back under there, it's completely collapsed. Which surprises me that it's that good a pump, because a lot of times you have to prime them because they don't have enough suction to actually get them going to lift up from that tank. But let's figure out if there's any way I can fix this. And then on top of that, I noticed there's two pipes right up there, a blue one and a red one. Those are both leaking. So in a way, having to put new fuses in that controller saved me, because then I was able to notice that there was water down here. So I've got a pipe fitting there that I've got to tighten up. And they're crimped on fittings, so I'm hoping I can just tighten up the crimp. So what I'm going to attempt to do is figure out how to switch these valves so that I can pressurize that hose and run a heat gun on it to heat it up and see if I can massage it back into its original shape. So if I'm going to, let's try city water fill. So that's going to pressurize going into the tank. That should turn off the dry camping pump. I think it's going to be just a little trial and error. Okay, so that I have these valves all set to city water. So what I'll do is I'm going to hook up my air hose to it. I have my gauge on here. You can see from the gauge that it's just accepting all the air, so I'm not getting any back pressure. Alright, well, I'm giving up. Between the cold and whatever memory they have, it's just running the risk of them collapsing again. It's not likely if it's only drawing from the tank, but if for whatever scenario that was that blocked that off from the tank and caused this kind of suction, it's possible it'll do it again. Did it once. So I was about to head to the parts store, and I thought I'll just try heating it and see if I can restore its memory. Surprisingly, it works. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it actually works. Well, I was able to heat that up and massage it and get it back into place. Got lucky. So now I just need to get up there with these little crimping pliers and crimp that clamp. It's a clamp like this one, and just put a little bit more pressure on it. Hopefully that will seal up those two leaks. You can see down here where it's leaking. And then I can go around the trailer and check everything else to make sure I don't have any other leaks. Because there's some antifreeze in this system, but I'm finding a lot of water in the system too. So I'm afraid it wasn't winterized correctly. Just like, all right, well, it looks like this probably did the trick, because on the fittings, those were really loose. And now I have to really try to twist them, and they're not loose anymore. So I'm sure those will seal up now. Now let's go around and check everything. So I'll start by putting air pressure back on this, and I'm going to turn it to city water so that I can charge all the system, and then I can go around and check all the faucets. Went to walk around the trailer and see if there was any water leaking anywhere, and it was just pouring out of the water heater. And it has a drain plug that was in place, and there was water coming out the backside. This is an on-demand water heater, doesn't have a tank, so they probably just took this plug out and the water came out of it and they figured it was good. It's not. This has to be winterized. It has to be completely blown out, and it takes marine antifreeze. Now, a typical water heater, you can take that plug out and blow it all out, and you'll get enough water out. You're not going to freeze the tank. I don't know about this. This is devastating. After finding that horrible broken water heater, I went ahead and got that all taken care of, and I've got it reinstalled. I have another video where I actually showed that water heater once I pulled it out. Once I realized it's leaking so bad, I had to pull it out and find out what was wrong with it. I have it fixed now. I've got it back installed again so I can get back and start checking everything. So I have another video. If you want to go back and see that video to see what I did on the water heater, how I actually was able to repair it and get it all back installed and actually diagnose it, because after all that it didn't work. Well, at least I have it in, and I can pressure test everything, test all the valves and switches and all the rest of the plumbing and faucets, and make sure there's not any other issues. So what I started out doing is I wanted to sanitize the system. So I put a cup full of bleach in this and filled it with water, and then I used the suction feature. It's the sanitize siphon feature. Put a hose in here, hooked it up to the city water connection. The pump sucked all that up and into the tank. It's pretty cool. So then I went ahead and filled the tank. So now that I've got the tank filled with sanitizing liquid, I want to purge out all the antifreeze, and I want to get that bleach solution throughout the whole system. And the pump runs. I ran all the faucets, the toilet, the shower, everything works good. I was able to flush out all that antifreeze. I can smell the chlorine in the water, so that'll do its job. Now I can just leave that. You leave it for 24 hours, and then you flush out all that chlorine. Well, when I run the pump now, the pump has great pressure. Everything works as you'd expect it to work. But the pump won't shut off. It just keeps running and running and running. And it sounds like it's sucking air somewhere. So the saga continues. One positive thing, the two pipes that I had that were leaking, that I crimped on, those sealed up. So that worked. The water heater, I've got it all pressurized. It's sealed up. That worked. The water heater itself still doesn't work though, so I've got more issues. And I'll do an update on that video of the water heater. So one of the things I'm finding out, researching all this, Grand Design has a great forum. There's a lot of really good people on there that know, and I started YouTubing it, and there's not a lot of YouTube. So I wanted to finish this video and diagnose my issue, because it's kind of a common issue, but there's different solutions. One of the things I say is, this can be sucking air. Well, it has a two-way valve here, and that two-way valve keeps pressure going out, not in. So what I'm experiencing here really doesn't make any sense, but let's try it. So one of the things they said is close that off, run the pump. Well, it just keeps running and running and running. So to seal it off, I've got my little air nozzle where I can air blow out all the lines. I screw that in nice and tight to really seal it all off. Switch everything the way it should be switched, which is the way it is now. Run the pump. It's still sucking air. So it's not that, but this did seal. So once I pressurized everything, water stopped coming out of here. So fortunately, I don't have to replace this valve. And I put the screen in, and I put it in the correct way, because when I got looking online, people are using this screen. They're just using it correctly so that it doesn't push in on that valve. So that's done. You'll have to excuse the carpenters next door running their saws. Hopefully it's not that loud. So another thing that I'm finding, guys are saying, well, when the lines collapse, like this did, that can cause some leakage around some of the fittings so that they're sucking air on those fittings. So I did get all the lines opened up enough so that when I run the pump and I've got water flowing to all the faucets, I've got good water flow. So I feel really good about those collapsed pipes being open just enough now. I'm getting good circulation. So now I'll start playing around with all these fittings and see if I can find the one that's sucking air. And how I know that it's sucking air and where I diagnose it is right here. I can run that pump and I can hear it gurgling and sucking air. I switch this and it stops. Everything gets pressurized and balanced so the pump actually shuts off. So at least now I know it's not the pump, and I know it's not the hose going to the pump. There's a little screen filter leading into the pump. A lot of people say, well, that can leak, it loses its seal. That'll suck air. No, it's not that. I don't know why this blue switch and what it does when I switch it. I don't have the knowledge of the maze of plumbing behind this panel to understand what is that doing. But in all the situations where this is switched going the other way, it's for siphoning. So it has something to do with picking up water into this area, I guess. Like I say, I don't know. But I'll set the camera up on the back side of this panel and we'll start looking at all these fittings and see if I can find out which fitting is actually leaking. Is it cracked? Is it just loose? Does it need a new seal? Let's check it out. Okay, it's kind of hard to tell, but this tube here and this tube here, those are the two that were crushed. This is still smashed a little bit, but it's opened up just enough on the back side of it that I'm getting good flow, so I'm comfortable with that. And as things heat up in the summer, I think this will relax a little bit more. But you can see all this plumbing and all these tubes and all these connections right in here somewhere is the one that is sucking air. And as I turn this on, you can hear the pump running and you can hear the air sucking in, and I can see air going across the little screen in the bubble. So somewhere on this manifold, there's a manifold here that has two switches, the blue one and the white one, and it has a whole bunch of fittings coming off of it. What's probably going to make the most sense is to take this whole panel loose so I can get to the back side of it, because to get in here and try to tighten up any of these fittings, I can't get in there. Well, I was about to throw in the towel, literally. And my neighbor walked over and we were just kind of brainstorming, and both our brains hurt. I was sure this valve, which is the blue one, just isn't switching right. So I drained the freshwater tank because I had chlorine bleach in it. I wanted to get that out of there, and I wanted to circulate fresh water through it. And so I drained it, I filled it up, and while I had the hose hooked up, I switched it to city water, and it won't work. The city water goes through this valve. This valve is a three-way valve. It switches this way for city water, it switches this way for pump. When I switch the pump, and I'll get it just in the right spot, it works. But when I switch it to the culinary water, I can't get anything to work but just gurgle a little bit of water out. Well, when I'm messing with it on the pump and it's gurgling and sucking in a little bit of air, it's this valve. So I was trying to figure the valve out. I took it all off, and I took it all apart, and there's this little switch on the top of this that goes back and forth. As I'm looking inside these ports up at the sun, it's not lined up. This is wrong. How it got wrong, I don't know. But somehow this got out of position. And down inside of this is a little teeny screw. I might have stripped it out because I pried this thing off of there. I was getting so pissed. So if I get some epoxy and put down around that little screw, I'm pretty sure I can fix this. So I'm going to experiment with that and see what I can do. Okay, here's the true test. I got my valves off. I've got these set the way dry camping are supposed to be set. Here we go. Flip the switch to the pump. Pump's running. And it's off. And it's off in both directions. That's awesome. And it comes on and off with water flow. This is awesome. I can't believe I just stumbled onto that. Amazing. I'll hook up the water now and see if I can get water to circulate through the whole trailer, and as though we're off the grid, or I should say as though we're hooked up to city water on the grid. Okay, I've got city water hooked up now, and I've got my city water switches based off of this, and I've got city water. Oh, this is awesome. Man, oh man, I would have never guessed that valve was actually not switching dead center so that the water could flow both directions. It's probably been that way since the factory, because it didn't look like it's been apart before, and it didn't look like it had slipped a cog or anything, but who knows? Maybe that's why the previous owner finally got fed up and sold this thing when it was only about 6 months old. Wow, what a huge relief. Now I just got to put all this back together. Alright, now that I've got all this system back together, I can test it and see if it works. The pump is actually still on, so it's just a matter of turning on the water. Awesome. So with that tested, everything's set correctly. I tested it for city water, when I put these back on, this is on the same manifold. These are too close together in this plastic hole. So that's putting way too much bind on both of these shafts. And that would be my guess, is the pressure on the side of this shaft and turning it, it slipped a cog and just screwed it all up. So it's going to do it again. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to get a file and file both of these holes and get them bigger enough so there's not so much tension on those two shafts. But it's fixed, everything's working. I feel really good about all my knowledge I've gained from this. So hopefully that helps you. I mean, if you're watching this video, it's probably because either you have a problem like this or you just want to know more about it. So thanks for watching. Feels great to have this working. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again. Goodbye for now.